we're pretty lucky to have such an abundance of different species and different lakes to go after. But despite all the lakes and all the fish we have, sometimes finding them isn't always the easiest thing in the world. Because anybody can go out there and get skunked, even someone like me goes out all the time. But learning how to read lake maps or shorelines can help increase success on the ice dramatically. Having the right gear to locate the fish and calling fish as well is also very important once you've chosen the location you want to go to. We're going to be covering how to read the lake maps and the shorelines, as well as using electronics and other gear to effectively catch fish and put more of them on the ice. And we got a bunch of stuff to cover here, so I want to leave time for questions and for any more questions after the program. So I'm going to cover this pretty quick. Using available lake maps from either your boat's GPS or sonar if you have it, or the Game of Fish also has a very good availability of lake maps for free on their homepage, which is what I use. And here is where I've got all my lake maps for places that I go most often, and I've laminated a lot of them. That way I can mark off spots that I've caught fish or places I haven't caught fish before. Plus, with the contour lines there, those are very valuable to kind of pick and choose where you want to go try and find fish at. And that's the website, gfp.sd.gov, is where you can find all lake maps at. Here's an example of Sheridan Lake. I'm sure most of us ice fish are pretty familiar with that. You see all the different marks, like in the deeper water where the depth drops frequently or off the points are good places where a lot of guys go. I myself, when I'm fishing on Sheridan for perch, I'll usually look for points or basins or flats. Like I fish like in this area here, fish a lot. Last year I was in this bay here an awful lot. A lot of guys like to fish out at Dakota Point or back in these areas over here. So, but having a lake map on a lake like Sheridan, where the depth and the points, there's so many different changes, is good to have. Now, for another example like Sylvan, which is a little bit flatter, until you go over by the dam, it's just nice to have this, and you can kind of see where your depths are without having to go out into the lake in the first place and find your depths. You've already got a map, and you can kind of pick and choose where you want to try when you go out in the ice. So even on a flatter lake like Sylvan, it's still nice to have the option. Location choice is based on species you're going after. That can influence where you look on a lake. Perch, for example, they like to hang off points and in flats and in bays. Trout we usually catch them most time in shallow water, usually when there's not as many steep drops off of points or back in bays, usually where the best places to catch them at. Walleye, points and steep depth drops is where I've had the most luck locating them, like at Ormond or Angostura, for instance, or further up north at Shade Hill. Pike, like shallower bays and shorelines with vegetation like cattails and whatnot that are still poking out of the ice. Learning how to read your flasher can help you out. You can pay particular attention to the color and the color being displayed on the bottom of it to really figure out what's exactly below you. Like mossy, muddy, gravelly bottoms, rock bottoms show up as a hard red line. They either they'll show up as that on your Vexilar or whatever flasher you have. It'll show up as the hard red line. Weeds will appear a little bit greener right above that hard red line. So you can kind of tell what the bottom is like just from putting your flasher down there to kind of see what kind of marks you're getting. If it's a lot of red, you're looking at a pretty mossy or a muddy bottom. Versus if you got red and then a little bit of green or yellow above that, then you're looking at taller weeds. It's a good way to read it without having to buy or have a underwater camera. Looking for underwater features. What's on the bottom can be hugely influential in what fish might be there. Perch like muddy or weedy bottoms. Rainbow trout like vegetation, moss, algae, or small weed cover. Bluegills and crappie like to hang out in tall grasses, weeds, or in brush piles or sunken branches in the water. If you can find one of those, there's a good chance you'll find crappie on the lakes that have them in it. Walleyes like rocky or gravelly bottoms that transition into muddier areas. And pike like tall weeds or weed areas that transition into open areas. This one of the reasons why it's nice to have it on our camera, so you can actually just put that down there and figure it out. Like I myself use the AquaView Micro there for this, for instance, Vexlar has a good system. They've got their basic one there on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is their fish phone. It's an underwater camera that it streams it right to your smartphone. You just put the camera down there, and it's got a Wi-Fi indicator on the top of the coil there that actually will send that signal, the image to your phone. It's kind of a neat system that they came out with last year. This is just some general examples of where these different types of fish are found. You got your perch over the muddy, mossy bottom, the northerns in the weeds, walleyes in the gravel, and the rainbows hanging out in the shorter grasses. You want to stay light and mobile. For most fishing here in the hills, mobility is the key to finding more bigger and hungry fish. Trout, perch, and crappies are always on the move. Walleyes, they follow the bait fish, especially at night. This is when you usually see them move from the deeper water into the shallows. Lake trout are found at very different depths of Pactola. It's hard to find them in the same place twice around there. Light gear is a must, especially for hole hopping, especially if you're chasing like perch and crappies. You only just carry 1 or 2 rods with you if you can, a flasher, and your auger. And what I've converted to this year is the clam conversion kit. Because I've used a gas auger for the most part, but this year I've gone with this. It only weighs 12 pounds. It's a lot lighter than the 32 that my auger weighs. So far I've drilled about 70 holes this year, and I've used less than a third of my battery. It's recommended to use an 18-volt lithium-ion drill so that you don't wear your battery, so the batteries will wear out as fast. But it's also very quiet, and it punches through. So far 5 inches of ice is what I've been going through, and it punches through pretty quick, and it's very quiet. And you can't beat it for the weight. If you haven't tried one of these out, I know once the ice gets a little bit thicker, it's hard to say. They say you can do about 100 holes per battery through 8 inches of ice. So as soon as the ice gets a little thicker around here, I aim to test that out. But for staying mobile and staying light, it's really hard to beat that. It's been one of the hottest products in the ice fishing market for the last 3 years. Ringing the dinner bell. Once you pick your spot, you want to try and use spoons that help bring in the fish. I just call them like a searching spoon. Bright, flashy, noisy. Any kind of spoon that's going to emit that will bring in fish from afar to come and look at what you're presenting them. The most aggressive fish tend to be the ones that would go after your spoons. Those also tend to be the biggest fish. So it's always good to have have some good spoons handy for when you're first trying out a new area. I like to use short 18 or 20 or 12 to 18 inch jiggy motions just to give a good pop so that you get the lure to make noise or to flash if it's one of the flatter ones that has a lot of silver or gold on it. The spoons I recommend are the clam speed spoon and the new Rattling blade spoon. Other ones to look at include the time bomb spoon and the bomb spoon themselves, which I'll have in some tackle boxes there. You can always come and look at them. The new this year that I'm trying is Born to Fish spoons. Pretty excited to try these for walleye and lake trout. The salmon chubby darter is a good spoon to call fish in, as well as the Northland puppet minnow. And like on the left-hand side here, we've got the Rattling blade spoon, the speed spoon, the time bomb spoon, and the bomb spoon. These ones here, these two are mostly for making noise and flash. The time bomb spoon, this is metal, so when you're jigging it up, these are clacking together and it makes a lot of noise underwater. And then the Born to Fish lures are these ones right here on the bottom side. There's a gentleman who makes those in Massachusetts. He sells them through Etsy, and they look really good. And he's going to design something specifically for lake trout in the Black Hills. There's a couple of guys who recommended he make a new design for them. And I do have some of those in my tackle box too that you can look at after the program. Jigs and jigging. Tungsten is definitely the way to go. I fish with tungsten about 95% of the time now. I like it because it gets down faster, and to do a cadence jigging, where you're just sitting there, just kind of moving your wrist, it's so much easier to use tungsten because of how much more it weighs than your standard lead jigs. And that also goes through slush and weeds a lot easier because of it's just more dense than your lead jigs are. Good choices I like to use are Clams Drop Series, which are all tungsten, as well as jigs from 8 My Bait, which are available through their website at 8mybait.com. This is some examples of some of the jigs. The two up here are the drop and the duckbill drop. And two of my favorite ones from the original clam lineup were the ant drop and the epoxy. The epoxy's got a little crystal on the front of it there that when during sunny conditions, it's kind of neat to see the light kind of refract and reflect off of that. It's really kind of neat. It kind of gives this prismatic effect. Really effective on trout, especially in that particular color. The ant drop has been my go-to one for the last couple of years for perch. And then brand new this year from Clam is the caviar jig and the drop kick jig. The caviar jig I think will be a really good one for trout because what trout love to eat fish eggs, which is exactly what the caviar drop is supposed to mimic. And so far this year, the 5 times I've been out, I've been using the drop kick a lot, and it's a killer jig. Just because it's designed to go up and down when you're jigging, and if you're using a plastic or anything that has a long tail on it, the action is just phenomenal. And so far, this has caught me most of my fish so far have been caught on a drop kick this year in the red color. So I'm really excited for that one. And then we have some other ones here from 8 My Bait that work pretty well. He makes his jigs in a lot of different patterns. It's mostly off for panfish is what he makes his jigs for. He's got his tungsten line, the two on top, and that bottom one is the Ice Reaper series. It's flat on top, flat on the bottom, so you can really pound it into the ground really good, and you just bring it up. And if you've got a plastic on it or wax foam or anything like that, it looks really good. It works really. I've had really luck on bluegills with those, just pounding them on the bottom. And then plastics. J&S custom jigs, who are owned by 8 My Bait, are ones that I like to use frequently. They've got the Gojo series, the Larva Mite, which is probably the best maggot imitation I've seen yet, especially the red ones. The red ones are just like the red maggots we can buy at the stores. And the Versamite works really well on trout. The Versamite Junior, which I've got, is extremely tiny. I've used it a little bit on some of my smaller jigs because the thing is only about this big, and it's really hard to get it on. It's really hard to thread it onto a bigger jig other than just the smaller ones. But caught me some perch out at the Stockade a couple weeks ago, so it'll be a good one too this year. And then their standard, the Ice Mite, which with that little tail at the end, a little ball really gives the tail a lot of good action down below. Then Clam also has their Mackie Plastics lineup. The Jamie, as well as the Jamie XL, which came out this year, are probably my favorite ones out of this lineup, just because the tail on that Jamie, you start moving your wrist a bit, it really quivers, and works really well on the gills and the rainbows around here. And you got the Draggy, the Minnow, and the Minnow XL, which is a newer one too this year. It's a ½ inch longer than the Minnow was. They're really good for crappies and for walleye fishing on spoons. And then the Minnow Head and the Mackie are some of the other ones that they use. The Minnow Head last year was a good one for walleyes for me when I was fishing up north with my dad at Shade Hill. And you want to make sure you stay up to date with all this different news and technology that's coming out. Because ice fishing is constantly changing these days. That's why it's so exciting to be, to be involved in it so much, because just how much is changing from year to year. You want to keep track of current presentations, techniques, new information, new bits of equipment. HSM Outdoors is a great resource for this. Stay up to date with fishing reports, news updates, and different stories that guys will send into their website. Also, I highly recommend if you have Facebook, get on there and like them, because every other day or so they're publishing, they're sending out reports of guys, what they're catching, what they're using, the depths they're catching them at, you know, or just different tips like for safety and whatnot. It's a really good resource to have if you use social media. They also have hunting reports and different stories too, besides just fishing. HSM is really now is an outdoors type company. We even do camping stories, you know, best ways to do this and how to best ways to stay safe out there. And in conclusion, with proper planning and using lake maps, you're using electronics efficiently, you're landing more fish in less time and having a great time out on the ice. If you have any questions after this, you can always contact me at my email address there at drauger81 or my website listed there as well. I also have business cards over the table there if you haven't picked up any that has this exact same information on it. Feel free to contact me anytime for any questions, concerns, fishing reports, or if you want to go out sometime. I'm always willing to go out with anybody who asks. So that's the presentation. So if there's any questions, go ahead and ask. I have stuff to give away for anybody who asks questions.
In the wintertime, ice fishing, is color as important as it is in the spring?
Color is kind of up to you. I mean, a lot of guys recommend using natural. A lot of guys like to use, you know, the brighter colors, the UV colors. I use a little bit of everything. Like right now, red's working really well for jigs, and red is more of a natural color. It mimics like the bloodworms and the bugs that are down the bottom. But sometimes I'll pull out the fire tiger color, which works really well a lot of times too. So I mean, I've got a wide range of colors. It just kind of depends on what the fish are feeling like that day. Usually I'll start with a brighter color. Like, I mean, red may be natural, but it's also a little brighter. Just to see if there's any around, and then if they don't like what I'm giving them, I'll just switch it up to something a little more natural to see if that works. Anything else? Usually early mornings when I go out. I usually leave about 5, depending where I'm going, I'll leave at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. I usually go and fish for a few hours. And normally, I've noticed that after about 10:30, it seems like a lot of the bite shuts down. At least until sunset then. No, I don't do a lot of night fishing, but I know a lot of guys fish for crappies at night, and they'll use like glow sticks and just a regular flashlight. There are things out there. There's one called a biolume, I think, that you stick it down the hole, it glows with green LEDs, and it just lights up, 20 yards of ice all the way around you. And it's pretty neat to see if you've ever seen it online or through the website. But some guys, a lot of guys use light for fishing, use that for fishing at night. You're right.
Do you like using like the new straight line reels, or do you prefer the swing reel?
I just got into straight line reels a couple of years ago. I put it on. I've got one right now. It's an Eagle Collecting line. I really like it. So it's a cheaper reel as far as the price, only $25, but it works really well. I like it because especially for finesse jigging, it keeps the jig from spinning. That's kind of the big thing about the inline reels, is that it keeps your jig from spinning because there's no line twist. This one here in particular has got a free spool feature on it. That's why I bought it, because most of the ones you have to pull the line out, but the free spool feature, you just have to click that and the bait and it'll go down by itself. And if you got a tungsten jig on there, it doesn't take long to get down to 20 feet or more with the free spool. But there's also, there's another one, there's a CGI inline reel that I'm looking at getting this year for another rod of mine. But for the most part, I just use spinning reels. That's what I'm used to. But yeah, but the inlines definitely have their place. That's for sure. Yes,
what kind of bait do you use for walleyes or
walleyes? I use minnow heads. And usually with walleyes, I'm using spoons for the most part. I like to use either like the clam blade spoons, the Lindy rattling spoon is another good one. And most of the time you just put the minnow hook, head on the hook, you pop off the body, and you just jig with the head. Works. It's the most effective thing I've found as far as bait for walleyes. But last year I did try that minnow, because that plastic minnow from clam was a new one last year, and it did catch some walleyes. So I'll be definitely using that again this year. But minnow heads on spoons works best for walleyes. And then for northerns, you're going to be using like big chubs, big suckers. Some people, want those ones will be alive. You can buy those at the rooster. But our other guys use frozen smelt, just for something kind of a something's dead and smelly. That'll bring the northerns.
Do you identify any patterns for the lake trout?
I'm kind of a newbie to lake trout. I tried for them last year at Pactola, but I didn't have any luck. And this year, I know there are some in Deerfield, but I haven't been up there yet to try for them. I know Gold worked on them over and over water as far as the color, but as far as like right now, I'm not really sure what they're patterning on. That's why those lures I got from Born to Fish are rainbow colors and perch colors, because that's pretty much what they're going to be feasting on with the amount of those in Deerfield right now.
You're putting I haven't been ice fishing in 50 years. You're putting a drum or something on the lure. You're not using the bear hook.
Yeah, I'm not using bear hook. No, I like to use, if I'm not using plastics, I like to use red maggots, which the rooster just got in here the other day. So I'll be buying some, but this year so far we're using plastic because they haven't had them. A lot of guys like to use wax worms too. I've never had a lot of luck with wax worms, but red maggots always seem to be the good meat of choice that most of the fish around here prefer.
What percentage of your jigs are glow jigs?
Or what?
Glow in the dark.
What percentage? Oh, about half of them.
Okay.
Most of the ones that are just kind of more solid colors, multicolored ones like that, those are all glow. Ones like that aren't glow are going to be like your standard, like your golds. That won't glow. But mostly they all in the clam line, all their jigs glow except for the ones that are gold colored. Glow works well for low light. And most of the ones in the back here are also glow as well.
It's a little dark down below.
Yeah.
When you're moving, do you spread out with tip-ups and that at all, or do you?
I don't. I use tip-ups every once in a while. There's at the Sioux Falls Ice Institute last year, I talked to a guy who likes to use tip-ups for perch. He likes to get a good spread. He kind of works the inside, but then on the outside he'll drill some extra holes and he'll put a couple of tip-ups out. And the one he recommended was the dog bone from Frayville, because you can move it up and down to adjust the tension. Because you can push it up a little higher to adjust for lighter fish, panfish, and perch, which is kind of why I got interested in it. So every once in a while I will drop a couple of those, like one of those around me there, or also throw out this Arctic Warrior setup from Clam, which works as like a tip-up for the most part. You just have to attach the metal here to this, and when a fish takes it, the flight pops up and the line pops up. It's kind of a neat little setup there. I'll stick I'll usually tail a minnow on this so he can move around, but this thing with the jig also does a lot of the attracting.
You mentioned in response to another person's question about that you go out early and you found that you fish until 10 or 10:30 and then the biting drops off. What about times in the afternoon? You fish in the afternoon?
Well, if I fish in the afternoon, it's usually been about 3 o'clock on. It just kind of seems to be that way around here, where after about 10:30, it just seems like they just all of a sudden shut down and move out. So, you can still find fish. I'm not saying that you can't find them.
Right.
I do catch fish afterwards once in a while, but just never in the numbers that it was before in the morning. It was before earlier in the morning. Even when you're in an area, say like last year, I took a couple guys up to Deerfield, up to Gold Run, because up there you can go up there and you can pretty much catch fish to your heart's content. Because there's so many bluegills, or so many perch and splake and rainbows and rock bass in that area there. You can take anybody up there and you're going to catch a fish and have a good time. There won't be much size there, but But then it seems like about 10:30, 11 o'clock, it was just like the fish disappeared. You know, and it's been that way for, since I started ice fishing pretty hard about 6 years ago. After about 10:30, 11 o'clock, it's just really hard to find the fish.
And where was this place that you were talking about?
Deerfield, in the Gold Run area.
Okay, thank you.
Walleye, there's no walleye actually in the hills, right? You have to get out.
No, you have to go to Angostura or Ormond for those. I know there's a couple of areas, I just saw the fishing report today in the journal. The Angostura is starting to ice up a little bit, but it's too thin yet to get on. There's still a lot of guys boat fishing down there. Ormond's it's frozen, but not recommended to get on there. It's probably a couple inches thick, it said. So we need some colder weather to freeze that lake up a bit. And Ormond and Angostura are always kind of iffy anyway, even in a colder year, because they're prairie lakes. The wind, wind and a little bit of sun just really affects the ice down there a lot. Last year, the bite on Ormond, I heard, was the best they'd had in a long time. And as soon as I was planning to get up there, we had 3 days of 50 degrees, and I was told to stay to go to Deerfield. So you got to really watch the ice if you're going to try for walleyes at Ormond and Angostura.
Scott? Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Oh, you were talking about lighters better, so what are you talking about?
Well, it's
For all your gear?
yeah. I mean, for me, when I bring everything out with me, I bring the shack, 70 pounds. Flasher, that's another 5. That's another 5 to 10. 6, probably 4 to 6 rods. And a lighter auger now this year. I used to my 30-pound auger was what I used to take before. I was hauling 120 pounds behind me. I don't have a 4-wheeler. I don't have a snowmobile. I walk. So I'm pulling everything down. I'm pulling everything behind me. So that's why this year, another reason why I went to the conversion kit is because it saves me 20 pounds, which on the ice is a lot. And I liked having smooth ice because I could pull it so much easier with snow. Then it gets a little heavy trying to pull that thing behind you. So I mean, it's kind of up to you how late you want to go. I mean, so far this year I haven't taken this out yet. I've just used a sled, a couple buckets, the conversion kit, and three poles, and then the next wire. I've got, because the ice is only about 4 to 5 inches thick in most places, so I don't need to have extra weight on me.
You going like that? How far apart are your holes?
I usually go about, if I'm fishing for panfish, I'm usually going about 10 to 15 feet between holes. I'll start shallow and I'll drill about 4 or 5 holes out, and then I'll go over probably about 20 feet further, and then I'll pop a few holes going back into shore. As it gets you kind of, if I really want to cover a lot of area, I'll just kind of keep doing that and get a good spread. When I'm fishing for panfish, perch, I like to hole hop a lot. I'll fish for a little bit until the fish are no more fish, and I'll move to another hole. And when I've got so many holes, I can kind of pick and choose where I want to go. But yeah, usually it's about 10 or 15 feet between different holes.
What have you tried out so far this year?
So far this year, I've been to Stockade, got into a real good bluegill bite, but that was before this heat of the last week. And the ice was only about 4 inches when I was there, and it was melting pretty quick. I went down to the next day with a couple of guys, and it was only about 3 inches thick there. So I would advise staying. I've heard the west side of Stockade is a little bit thicker, but I would probably stay away from the east side for now. Sylvan's got 5 inches of good ice. I was out there on Tuesday this week. Had a pretty decent rainbow bite. And that ice was 5 to 6 inches there where I was at. And then I've been to Roe Bay, which we only caught a couple of small rainbows there. But and then I touched Deerfield really quickly Tuesday later in the morning to see how thick the ice was. And Gold Run's about 4 inches. Back on the west side where the creek comes into it, it's about 5. But that was, of course, before the last couple of days of heat, so I'm not sure what they're going to be like now. I haven't been to Lakota in probably 7 years, but I plan on getting there this season because now that it's been drained and dredged, it should be a whole new bunch of fish to catch. Now I've seen some decent rainbows coming out of Lakota this summer, so I know there's some decent sized fish in there. Center Lake, I really want to go to, but I've never caught a tiger trout before. And since the state record was pulled out there last year through the ice, and most of the predictions say that record's not going to stand very long, because those not a lot of guys go to Center Lake, because it's just kind of in the middle of the hills, you know, not a lot of tourists go there. It's mostly locals, so I plan on getting to Center Lake for my first time. Center Lake is frozen over about 4 inches last I heard.
What do you know about the wormy, the perch in Sheridan being wormy now, like they were far in Stockade?
Well, the ones that I've kept the last few years haven't been really wormy. I typically practice catch and release. I just fish. I like to fish for fun. If I want to keep a few, I'll keep a few. Fish for the most part, I'm just out there to have a good time and catch some fish and then let them go. But I've heard every once in a while that they're a little wormy. But the ones I have kept during the Sheridan Ice Fishing Tournament the last 5 years, I haven't had any problem with them being wormy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you have any recommendations on fishing line? Are you a mono guy or a super line?
I am well, for panfish and trout, I am a fluorocarbon guy. I like that it's almost invisible in the water, so I can barely see it, so I know the fish can't see it. For panfish, I like to use either Berkeley fluorocarbon or Northland's fluorosilk in 3 or 4 pound test. They make lighter lines like 2 or 1 pound, but you never know when that northern might pop by if you're over at Sheridan or bass or bass or pike down Stockade. So I like to go about 3 or 4 pounds, and it's hard to find. I mean, I've caught an 8 pound northern on a 3 pound test at Sheridan a few years ago. So I mean, I know the fluorocarbon's a little tougher than mono. And then for like walleye lines, for my Laker lines this year, I'm running Berkeley or Fireline Ice or Nanofill, Berkeley Nanofill. The super lines are just tougher, they're abrasion resistant, don't have to worry about them really, getting caught on the bottom of the ice when rolling the bigger fish, so that the line might snap. And I use 8 pound test in that, just because and then I'll attach about an 18-inch fluorocarbon leader to that, use it in about 8 pound test.
Do you use anything to avoid line twist on the super lines?
No, I've never had a real problem. I mean, if you fish with a super line, with a fluorocarbon leader, if you attach it with one of these barrel swivels, then all the twist is happening to that 18 inches. Above this is not getting twisted because all the twisting is done in the barrel swivel. So you don't have to worry about line twist so much on those if you use that leader and use a barrel swivel to attach the leader to your main line.
If a guy wanted to try way out on the prairie a little bit, largemouths are tough to catch through the ice, aren't they?
They are. I mean, I've caught, but I've caught them at Stockade when I've been fishing for perch on just little jigs. I've seen other guys pull them through the ice too. I mean, they bite on, they'll bite on your little maggots. They'll bite on minnows. They'll bite spoons. I guess I haven't heard of it really being any harder to catch them than now. I mean, I think their metabolism, like most fish, slows down a little bit more in the wintertime, but they can still be caught on pretty much any ice fishing jig.
Ever hear a catfish coming out of the ice?
I have heard it, but I've never seen it. I know a lot of guys who have done it just from articles I've read, like In Fisherman and some others. They find where the fish are hanging out. It's usually in the wintertime. They say that the catfish kind of gather in a big pod, and they'll just sneak. They'll kind of find their hideouts on like a lake map or where they've seen before in the open water, and they'll just sneak down like a steak bait, liver, chicken liver, or something like that, and then they'll just haul them up to the ice there. The only place I've ever caught cats around here is over at the river, and I'm not. I can get on the Bell River during the winter season. So, but yeah, it's possible if you are on a lake that's got them.
So, if someone doesn't have the electronics, they go to one of our local lakes. What do you recommend? Starting at depth? What depth?
Well,
any tips on people with don't
yeah.
have
Well,
electronics?
here's how I used to do it when I was with how me and my friends would do it back in high school, up until I got my first flasher. Is we would just take just a hook and a minnow or a worm. We would take a weight, one of those clip weights, you just close it around your hook, and just drop it all the way down to the bottom. And we grab it right where the water is. We bring it up about 8 inches to a foot usually, and we put a bobber right there. And then we would just bring the line up, we attach the bait, and then we would just put it back down there, so that way your bait is off, either 6 inches to a foot off the bottom. That's all we did when I was in high school before I got a flasher. And you catch, I mean, the minnow's doing all the work. You just kind of sit there and wait for the bobber to go down. So that's the way you do it before. That's why I would do it around here if I didn't have a flasher.
You keep a journal at all?
No, I don't keep a journal. The best thing I've done as far as a journal is my lake maps here. During the year, I'll record where I've caught fish at, the depth, or if I didn't catch any fish at all. Like usually, like this one for instance was last year. I haven't taken my marks off yet, but I fished here, didn't catch any fish. Fished here, caught a decent number. Fished here a little bit further down, and then the date as well. And then I'll see if I caught some fish. I usually mark it with like 1 or 2 fish symbols. If I caught a bunch, 3 or 4. So my lake maps are kind of my journal for that I'll use just to keep track of where I've caught fish at around here. So that's why those game and fish maps are so nice, because you just print them off. You can if you don't want to laminate them, you don't have to. Just mark off your spots. Date them if you want to, so you can kind of see where the fish were at. I just like to use these for year after year, so that's why I got them laminated, so they just get marked off like that.
I notice you only have one type of spring bobber on there. You usually use more than one?
Well, yeah, I've got a couple. I mean, the ones I like to use right now that you can buy in the store are these Nitinol bobbers from Clam. They just go right on you put them right on there, but you can pull it out.
Right.
So you can to whatever tension you want. If you're going like ultra light, you can pull it all the way, so any little nibble shows you can pull it back a little bit to increase the tension a little bit. If you're using heavier jigs, for instance, because tungsten jigs, I go about halfway, because although if it's out too far, tungsten will make it go like that. It's because it's heavier. It's hard to tell if it's a bite or not. But other ones have like a spring bobber already on them. Like this is a brand new one I got from St. Croix this year. It's the Legend. It's got a spring bobber on it as well that you can adjust the tension on just by pushing in the spring or pulling it out. But that one will be. This is a very. I call it an uber sensitive spring bobber. I use this probably more on bluegills than anything else this season, just because it's so light.
The one where the line goes right through the spring there. It's
Yeah,
okay until the weather gets cold.
Actually, these work pretty well. There are some that where the line goes right through it, like Fradyville HT make a couple. Those ones are they're a pain in the butt to get the line through first of all, because it can go out in the spring. But like this one here, this was a custom rod that I had built for me. This one has the spring bobber that goes up like this. So all I gotta do is run it through the guide, and I don't have to worry about it being twisted up. And it doesn't ice up hardly at all, which is nice about it. Yeah, the guy who makes these ones, this one and this one here, got the same kind of spring bobber. His name is Adam Bricker from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He makes a lot of these custom rigs that have that. But or if what's really popular these days now is a noodle rod, or extra fat or tips that are extra fast. I just bought this one in Sioux Falls here from Glacial Lakes here out of DeSchmidt here. And this is what I've been using most this year, because that tip is it's super sensitive, but it's got some backbone to it that can hold a bigger fish. So these like this one here has kind of been my new favorite one this year because of how I can see the bite. Even bluegills I can see the bite, I can see the tip moving down. But for some of the bigger fish, like the trout that I've been catching on, it's got enough backbone to be able to handle them. But yeah, so you can buy the spring bobbers, or you can have them attached. But I don't recommend those metal ones with a spring, just because that line, those ice up and the line is tough to get in there. So it's better to go with like the Nitinol bobbers from Clam, or just have it already on the rod. Also helps too.
Like fishing in the shack, fishing the
using it in my, I usually use it when I'm in my shack usually because it's hard to see in sunlight, just because it's an LCD screen. So I'm using it in the shack is more recommended, just going to get that glare. But I usually I'll drill a hole like off the side here. That's where the camera goes down. And I'll have a hole in front of me that I'm actually running the flasher out of, or running my rod out of. But it just kind of helps me to see how the fish are reacting. If you put the camera in your line down the same hole, you run the risk of tangling. The fish gets on it. But if you have it in a hole a little further away, and you just kind of turn it so you can see your jig and watch the fish, then it's not really. Then I'm not using my flasher hardly at all when that happens. If I don't see any fish on my screen, then I'll look at the flasher. You look at the VEX screen, and I'll tell if there's any fish around within that cone angle. And then if I see something pop up, well, then I'll go to the camera. I mostly use the camera for just seeing what the bottom looks like. But every once in a while, if I want to see how the fish are reacting, then I'll throw down the camera. I'll just drill a hole right next to another hole, and that's where I'll put the camera down. But yeah, that's how I usually use the camera.
How do they go?
No, they can be caught anywhere from 10 feet deep all the way up to over 100 feet deep. The one guy in town who's kind of a lake trout master, in fact, told us Craig Euler. He's the one I usually go to for questions about where they're. He may not tell you where they're biting exactly, but it kind of gives you an idea of the depth that you can look at. So he's the one I usually contact for actual lakers. And I haven't been to Deerfield to try them out yet to see how deep they're at. But they can be. He said he's caught them anywhere from 10 feet deep all the way up to over 100. Just kind of depends on where you find them. They're so nomadic. It's hard to, you can't really stay in one area. You got to really spread out and try new areas. And, when I was there last year, I tried out some points, tried some bays. I only saw one, in fact, all last year, and I'm not sure. It might have been Laker because of brown trout too. It's hard to say, but for that, yeah, kind of a wide range of depths for lake trout.
Can you go over ice safety?
I can. Right now, if you want to go out in the next week or so before it gets cold again, be sure that you have some picks on you, like these ones here that just go together. A bunch of different models out there. They're only about $5 to $7. You just wear them around your neck. Just let me get out. The spikes. Make sure you have some spikes on so you can grip onto the ice, or you do fall through, so that you can get your way out. Have a rope handy, and don't go out by yourself. Make sure you have a buddy with, at least for the first ice here. Make sure you have a rope, at least 25 feet. This is a safety rope meant specifically for ice fishing and clam makes. All you do is you hold on to one end, open this up, and you just toss the bag out, and it'll slide all the way out. And you just got to use the loop to pull them out. This year I got a lift suit this year. This is actually a floating suit. If I were to fall through, it'll help keep my head out of the water. Because clam makes one, Frabo makes one, Striker Ice makes one. After clam came out, this one a couple years ago, and then some other brands kind of followed suit. But it's just a good way to keep you safe, whereas if you have some different safety gear. And also makes your wife happy. Questions? All right. Well, feel free to mingle. Come with all the stuff you want. And thanks for coming back. You want, like I said, if you ever need to go hold me,
Scotty.
Just make sure you use. Oh, drawing. All right. And the winner of the $50 gift card goes to Phil.
Oh, you're kidding, Mike.
100. Oh, really? Oh, and I should tell you too. This Saturday from 10 to 1, I will be at Shields promoting clam and ice fishing. Swing by and see me there. And on Sunday, I'll be at Cabela's from 1 to 4. Doing some promotions there too. So if you want to ask me some questions, see some of the new products, feel free to come by. If you want to come see me, I'll give you $50.
size of